Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing an ink from Octopus Fluids, and that is this ink. It is Aubergine, and you can see it here in the box. I'll take this out. You get the this is the standard Octopus Fluids bottle. It's 30 mils, so this is Aubergine, which is a lovely vibrant purple. We're going to look at it on a few different sorts of paper and run it through some tests. So as you can see, this is a pretty good purple. It's got some vibrancy, some like nice lighter sort of violet purples, and then lots of darker shading that you can kind of see through that green gold sheen, which is quite prevalent in swatches and swabs and things like that. Not so prevalent in the writing. You get little hits of it, and that's what you'll find is that in a wetter pen on sort of good quality paper, you'll get hits of the sheen, but it's not like one of these like blanket sheening inks in writing. Here I have Octopus Fluids Aubergine on 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. This is the old Tomoe River paper that we all know and love. I had it in two pens, the TWSBI Go Broad and TWSBI Go Extra Fine, as per usual. You can see here once again in that swatch, lovely rich purple, violet sort of tones, and then that green sheen on where the ink is pooled. So let's talk about these 5 points. So first is that it is one of 22 colors. Octopus Fluids in their standard fountain pen ink range have 22 beautiful colors across a great spectrum. They also have a couple of other lines of inks that are okay for fountain pens, sort of more artistic inks, but this is one of their standard ones. It's made in Dresden in Germany, one of my favorite cities over there, and made by a chemist to exacting conditions. So all the details are taken into account. It's very precise, and which means that it's also safe for pens and all those kinds of things. It's all been taken into account. Another point I've made here is that Octopus makes inks for Diplomat. So if you've used any of the Diplomat inks, you are using inks by Octopus Fluids. So it's just really nice to know they produce really high quality stuff. And the last thing I've said here is that it is not a replacement for dark lilac. This is Lamy Dark Lilac, one of the most popular purples of recent years. It was a special edition in 2016. You can see these are very, very different purples. Dark lilac looking almost kind of like a magenta-y kind of purple in comparison to the bright, vibrant violet of Aubergine. So how does this ink perform? Well, I said it's a nice color. That is not so much a performance thing, but it is always nice to see colors like this on the page. But it does dry duller than it goes on. When you put it down on the page, it's quite sort of rich and vibrant, and it does slightly dull out, particularly on paper like this Tomoe River. It's got better saturation in wetter nibs and looks less grey. And by that, like you can see here, the two different pens, there's a grey tone coming through in the extra fine nib here, whereas we get less of that when there's more ink on the page. It seems to dry, obviously, more purple. And I said it's got a fair dry time. So after the 2 seconds swipe there, it's still very, very wet. After 20, it's sort of getting dry. So that's it's a fair dry time here on Tomoe River paper. So decent performance on lower end paper. We'll see that in a minute. It doesn't feather or bleed as much as some more aggressive inks. It's quite good in that way. It's got nice flow and good page contrast. Now, I say this a lot in reviews of inks, if they've got good page contrast or not. And by that I mean in all the shading versions. So the lighter shading in finer nibs, in heavier dark nibs, you can still read this very clearly. There are some grey inks, some sort of lighter colours like yellows and oranges and things like that, and even some purples that once they dry, in the lighter shading, it's less easy to read. This one is always visible. And I said that it is visibly purple violet, so there's no hints of black or blue, anything like that. It is very purple, which I enjoy. Extras on this ink, there's some shading, as you can see. Once again, if you look at even that word extras, see there's a nice sort of hit of the shading on the R there. Nice sheen, particularly in wet pens. No shimmer, and mid to low water resistance. As you can see here, this is where I put it down on the paper and then dry it up with a paper towel. we still manage to keep a bit of the writing behind. You can still make it out. So while you lose all of the color, it moves around a bit, it's going to make a mess. You will still be able to make out what you read, but it is not permanent. And here what I did is I drew a triangle and then I move it around with a water brush pen just to see how much the ink actually moves around when it's not being dabbed up, by a paper towel. Now we'll look at it on some other paper, and we'll start here on the very low end student notepad paper. You can see it actually holds fairly well. It is a much duller color. This paper does just drain the color out of inks, but even next to the burgundy there above it from Octopus Fluids, this one holds together, I think, just a little nicer. It's not quite as wet, perhaps. And then if we look at the reverse, it performs okay. We've got a range of other inks here, and while it does bleed through, it's not just like completely destroying everything. On the reflex copy paper, this is 80 GSM copy paper, we see once again it holds actually quite nicely. It looks good. Once again, it's a sort of more dull violet, with kind of bit of grey coming through, but it looks okay. And then on the reverse, we can see it actually performs much better than the burgundy, and they are in the same pens. It's all written here with TWSBI Go Broad and Extra Fine, so you can see it is a much better performer there than the burgundy on this copy paper. So if you're using, particularly not particularly wet nibs, and you have to write on office paper, this might be a decent option for you. Lastly here, I have it on Rodeo. This is 80 GSM Rodeo. You see the swatch there, a little bit of the sheen, not a whole lot, but nice sort of color. It looks excellent here. This is where I did the water test, where I put it down and just let it dry. We see there's still like a hint of the original crosshatch behind it. The ink is sort of really spread out, and we get the hits of the blues and the pinks, which you'll see when we look at the chromatography in a second. It's all kind of there, so it does just move around. So if you accidentally soaked your page in some paper, you would probably lose most of this. So get onto it quick if you do. If we look at the reverse of this page, once again, you can see it performs very, very nicely here. There's nothing that's sort of really come through. Even in the swab there, only a couple of dots have actually broken through the paper. This is a very nice ink. So looking here at that chromatography, as we could see on the water test on Rodeo, there's a lot of this sort of pink held behind, and that pink moves through to this beautiful turquoise blue, and then like a lighter pink around the top. It's very nice. You can see there's a little bit sort of held behind, and it's just this very slight hint, this tiny little line of purple right at the bottom of that chromatography. So yeah, some slight water resistance if you can get onto it in time. Okay, let's do a color comparison now, and I wanted to firstly put it alongside, once again, I'll put it alongside that Lamy Dark Lilac, so we can see, that it is a much more purple lilac, purple, I should say. Now, an ink that, another one from Diplomat, this one there, Octopus Fluids one, this is their purple. You can see that is very pink, very magenta in comparison to the violet purple of Aubergine here. Now, a couple of other inks, a diamine, because I love my diamines. This is Monboddo's Hat, one of my most favorite diamine purple inks. Looks great. It's got a much more gold sheen as opposed to the greeny gold sheen there. And it's a little bit more vibrant in the lighter tones. A couple of Robert Osters. Lastly, we've got Deep Purple and Bishop to King. Now, Bishop to King has a tiny little bit of purpley sort of sheen, like red purple sheen around the edge, almost like a copper, as opposed to the green, and it is a more blue purple. And then we've got Deep Purple here, which is much darker, much richer. It doesn't quite have the same hit of that sheen, but a very, very beautiful purple nonetheless. But here, the Aubergine, very, very nice. Okay, let's talk about the nitty-gritties here. So the price. In Australia, this bottle, this 30ml bottle, retails for $21.95. And Homes and Living here in Australia are the main supplier of Octopus Fluids inks in Australia. So I'll link to them down below. And the European price of this bottle is €7.95 for the 30ml. So pretty decent price for a decent amount of ink and for a very nicely performing ink. And in the end, I've given this ink 4 out of 5. It's beautiful. It's a great ink. There's nothing that really lifts it, in terms of there's no shimmer. There's some good sheen, but not so much in the writing, and there's no water resistance and things like that. But 4 out of 5, said it's a lovely ink, nice performer. It's affordable and also becoming more available, which I think is a really important thing. There's no point in me showing inks that are absolutely incredible that you just cannot get. This ink is becoming more and more available. A major retailer in the US has just announced they are stocking Octopus Fluids ink. So I will actually link to them below as well. And there's retailers all over the place now. So they're becoming very, very popular. And as I said, they produce incredibly high quality inks. So this was Octopus Fluids Aubergine. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce, and please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can contact me on any of my platforms, which are listed down below, or drop me a message here or an email if you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there is a way you would like to support this channel by sponsoring your review or providing an item for review. I would love to hear from you. A very big thank you to Octopus Fluids for providing a number of inks for me to review over the last little while. Yeah, they're interesting ones to check out if you're not familiar. In the meantime, enjoy your inks, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.